Hey there, Seeker. Just a heads up. This episode explores spiritual communication, mediumship, and the energetic presence of those who have passed on. We speak with a practicing medium about connecting with the spirit world, ancestral messages, and personal readings. While the conversation may offer comfort and insight, it may also stir deep feelings or questions about grief and the afterlife. We invite you to listen with openness and self-compassion. And if you need a break, take one. We'll be here when you get back. Hey there, Seekers, and welcome back to the Hanged Woman podcast. I'm your host, Julienne Irons, and this month we are digging into death, dying, and the afterlife. It has been such an amazing journey. In part 1 and part 2, we sat down with Kim Stravers. She's a death doula and advocate for the sacred transition of death. And last week we talked to Joelle Simone Melodano, aka the Grave Woman. She's a mortician, and she walked us through what happens to our bodies when we die. Now, if you're new to the show and haven't had a chance to listen to those episodes, I highly recommend you do. The perspective shifts were absolutely fascinating. On this week's show, we're stepping into the energetic dimension of death, the afterlife. We're going to seek to answer the questions of what happens to our soul when we die? Where does our consciousness go? Can we connect to our loved ones ourselves? And how might we find comfort in the unseen world of spirits? Look, there is no solid scientific proof that the afterlife is real, but that doesn't mean that it isn't. People from all over the world have had near-death experiences, where they see things like tunnels of light, loved ones who've passed, or even their whole life flash before their eyes. A lot of them say they feel totally at peace. So no, science hasn't proven it, but the stories, the patterns, and the weird stuff people experience keep us wondering, is there really an afterlife? Seekers, I am so excited to introduce our guest this week. Her name is Rachel Erin Bossio, and she is a psychic intuitive and medium. Rachel blends neuroscience, energy education, and spirit communication, or mediumship, into her work. She's here to guide us through what the dead experience on the other side, and how we can begin to tune in to this unseen but very real part of our existence. Welcome to the Hanged Woman podcast, where perspective is power. Let's get into it. Hey fellow seekers, I'm taking a quick pause from the show to share something really close to my heart, and honestly, the only reason you're even listening to this podcast right now. It's Three of Cups. My sisters and I created Three of Cups, an Iron Sisters mission of love, as a space for healing, beauty, growth, and community, because we believe life is meant to be full, rich, and abundant in every way. We offer all kinds of ways to support you, like energy healing, heart-centered art, plant-based medicinals, even marketing that will help enhance your brand's presence in the world. Because wherever you are in your journey, we want to help you feel seen, supported, and empowered. So if you're looking for something to help fill your cup in whatever way you need, come join us. Follow us on Instagram at 3 of Cups Healing, or explore all of our offerings at 3ofcupshealing.com. Because Seeker, your cup deserves to be full. And now, back to the episode. So, welcome to the show, Rachel. I'm so happy that you're here. I was so inspired by your work and by our conversation that we had previously. I think that you are amazing.
Oh, well, gosh, make me blush. I appreciate that because I felt the same way in our conversation. And like I told you, what you guys are doing, I feel the energy and the vibration of it. And it's big, it's loving, it's all encompassing. And I'm really excited to be a part of this little bit.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Well, when I explain myself to people, I'm a mother first and foremost. One of the greatest gifts that I have in this life is guiding these little tiny souls that look like their dad mostly, but we get through it. And I am a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend. That's how I kind of like to describe myself. I am someone who has experienced grief, and I've experienced great joy and happiness and fulfillment. And I keep striving for those things, right? Because we learn from them. So,
So, what is a medium, and are there different types of mediumship?
I would say the basic definition of a medium is an intermediary between the physical world and the spirit world. Now, as my own definition, I would say it is a person who is sensitive to the frequencies of the spirit plane and is also receptive to it.
Love that. How did you get into mediumship?
That is a big, big story. I got into mediumship really through my journey of healing, healing myself. So, with my third child, I started to kind of fall ill. I had a lot of autoimmune issues, things that were kind of just not explainable by doctors. I was just kind of thrown medicine here, try this, see if that helps. And it took me into the world of holistic healing, and holistic healing took me into the world of energy healing. And through that, and through my teachers and my guides, because these are, I'm going to say, human guides, were just people who were caring and loving and probably on the same journey as me and witnessed where I was in mine and put out a hand. And they introduced me to a world of energetic healing. And it started with emotion code, body code. It started with muscle testing and really learning to trust yourself and that you're connected to a higher consciousness. And from there, even still, I was like I depended on them. Oh, I don't feel good. I have a headache. It won't go away. I need you. And they would connect to me and they would say, girl, this isn't yours. Like, you're just absorbing other people's energy. So when they really encourage muscle testing and getting comfortable with me answering what this is. And once I started to do that, and I realized that a lot of the energy I was absorbing and feeling and pain wasn't mine, but it also, some of the time, wasn't someone's who is living. So it was a spirit, it was an energy that we just ended up on the same frequency, and they were trying to get their messages and communicate. And for a moment in time, I was freaked out by it.
Yeah.
No, don't come to me, go away. You know, I can't help you here. And it was my good friend who was the one who introduced me to Theta Healing. She was like, you need to just talk to them and stop fearing them. And so once I really took that in, those words, because it's so simple. Yeah, okay, stop fearing it. How do I do that? But when I really took a step back and I started asking them questions, I realized I can help. And then I found the compassion to try to help. And then that's where it kind of just opened a floodgate, really. So that was the beginning of it all.
Wow, it's amazing. So you talked about frequencies and you're able to communicate with them via frequencies. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so it's subtle. I think that the way our lives are and the way it's designed, it's very physical. It's very in front of us, and we are led to only believe what we see, right?
Mm.
And if you kind of step back from that and you find those moments in your life where you felt peace, you were at peace, you could have really been into a show and almost sort of falling asleep. You're kind of in that sort of, I don't want to call it a trance, but this relaxed state. And you're alone, and you all of a sudden get this feeling that you're not alone, right? And it kind of
Mhm.
freaks you out. And really, you just matched that wavelength. Your frequency matched theirs, that of the spirit plane or the astral planes. They're all on different wavelengths and frequencies, and we can bring in stillness In our own stillness and our own quiet and our own peace, we can match that. And that's where it kind of becomes a practice. You have to meditate and you have to find that peace within you. So there's all different levels, like radio frequencies. You're trying to tune the radio to find your jam, right? Well, we're doing the same thing in our lives every day. We can go for a walk, sit on the grass, have a picnic. You are tuned into a different frequency in that moment.
So, from what I'm understanding, then that's something that everybody can do, right? Like tap into frequency.
Yes,
And you mentioned meditation is
totally.
a way,
Meditation is the practice, right?
the practice.
So
Okay.
you can't
Mhm.
be good at anything without practice. But in order to practice, you got to have a desire and you got to have a want, a need for it, right? And so I found that because it brought me Zen. I have always been a very anxious person, and I just thought it was the way I am. I'm nerve-wracked. But I'm not an anxious person. I can be still. It's all the other stuff that we've been conditioned. The conditioned world is the distraction, right? It's the loud cars driving by. It's the drive through line being too long. It's the hustle and bustle of life that keeps us from finding and staying in that stillness. And in that stillness is where you can find yourself moving into a higher frequency. So, just a quick meditation or finding your center, leaning into the stillness of your being or the quiet is how you can find and match those frequencies. It's also where the magic happens.
So, can anybody be a medium if they tap into that frequency? Is that something that we all have the gift of doing?
I think so. I think we all have different stories or experiences of mediumistic phenomenon, right? You have to look back in your own life and find those little intricate pieces that, oh, I told myself that was just in my head. But really, that's our ego brain trying to convince us to not be scared. That's our ego brain trying to convince us that we didn't just have a spiritual experience, that it wasn't ours. And the number one thing is trust. Trust in yourself, trust in spirit, trust in your intuition.
What might that look like for a person? If we're looking back for examples, what might some examples be? What should we look out for?
Where spirit has touched us in some way, where we get a chill through our body, or we feel compassion in our heart, or unconditional love for someone. I explain that through the eyes of my child, seeing the twinkle in his eye. I know there's something bigger and greater than this world. I know that I've seen through him or through my other children my own father who's passed on. I get little confirmations, and we all do throughout our lives. A song comes on, certain words that we need to hear in that moment, it matters. That is the inner trust I'm talking about. That is trusting that was a sign, that was a message, that was a confirmation. It wasn't a coincidence.
Okay, so this reminds me of when I had to put my dog Luigi down. My older sister passed away in 2013, and the song that we chose for her memorial was Rather Be. And the night that I put Luigi down, my good friend took me out for sushi. And after we had ordered our food and had our sake, Rather Be came on the speakers in the restaurant. And it gave me this like sense of peace. It took me by surprise, honestly. I was just like, what? Like, how is this song playing right now? And it made me feel so connected to my sister. And it also made me feel like Luigi was okay. So is that what you're talking about? Are those the signs that we look out for?
That's an amazing confirmation to you. Not only was it a sign that probably, in my belief, just hearing this story, I got chills as you were saying it. I believe that was a sign from your sister that he's safe and they're together. I think that was exactly what you felt was what it was meant to give you. There's even smaller, tiny little insignificant ones that you don't think are what they are. The fact that you're running late to work and somehow you made it with a minute to clock in and you knew you were going to be late, right? You were already preparing what you were going to say, your excuse. And there's just kind of this little, if we fall into it, divine timing and divine help is what I like to call it.
I want to just backtrack for 1 second about the frequencies. So when you talk about frequencies, are you referring to like our brain waves?
Brainwaves are like different musical notes, and each is contributing to the overall melody of your mind. The brainwaves have to be measured in a way, and they're measured by frequency. What the frequency is matching what's around us. So each frequency range is associated with different mental states and brain activity. When you're in a theta brainwave, which is, like I said, I do theta healing, and that's kind of what led me into connecting with spirit. Those are the waves that are common during like light sleep as you're falling asleep, daydreaming, or even meditating. So it's really access to the subconscious mind. That's where our dreams come from. It's linked to creativity and intuition. So that is what I'm talking about when I'm saying like find that frequency, tap into that. It comes from moving ever so gently and recognizing your brainwave. Now, there are frequencies of spirit that are high because if you think we are low vibrational beings, we're here in the physical, we get upset, we feel things very deeply. There's a lot of physical that takes place, so it's dense. Spirit is the step up. So it is a higher frequency. It's not unattainable. We tap into it all the time. That's why in our previous discussion, I talked about the veil being so thin. It's because spirit is an extension of this life. So it's just a matter of matching that vibration. I guess the best way to explain it is when you get a ring in your ear, that pitch, that high pitch, or nails on a chalkboard, there is a pitch that is a frequency that one can just make you crazy, and another can be like, whoa, this is an attention getter, right? And you don't stay where you're hearing that sound. I'm not hearing a ring in my ear the whole time I'm communicating, but I can match it. And it's like balancing on a beam. Let me just try to stay here with you and see if you can convey to me and I understand it and interpret it, right?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. So let's talk about the other side. Can you actually go into a little bit more detail about how you personally connect with the other side?
Yeah. So, like I told you, how I came into mediumship, it started with healing and energetic healing. First and foremost, the muscle testing. Why I believe muscle testing is important is because it teaches you and it gives you the practice of discernment. It also gives you the practice and teaches you trust in yourself.
Can you explain what muscle testing is?
Okay, we'll use the heart as an example. We know that's a muscle, right? Well, if you think about how we connect, it's love. Well, where are we taught and we believe love comes from? That center, right? And you can call it what you want, Christ consciousness, the heart chakra, all of that ties into the same thing. It's an energy. But our heart physically is a muscle and it's containing that energy. So, muscle testing, I think of it like a magnet, and it is going to be pulled to what is right for it, and it's going to push itself away from what is not right for it. Does that resonate?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So, the easiest form of muscle testing that I always recommend to my clients just to practice is the sway test. And there's other forms. A lot of people are really great muscle testers and they'll use it for everything. They'll put supplements up to their chest, close their eyes, find that center, and their body will sway forward or backwards. And they will use that as if I need it or if I don't. So the same works with energy and communication. And with sway testing, my biggest practice is if you were to face a door, standing up, center your body, feet apart a little bit, shoulder width apart, and just kind of raise your head up, close your eyes. And I tell you, or you tell yourself, there is a snake, or imagine a snake coming through that door you're facing. It's
Mm.
coming right out from under it and it's coming for you. You will sway backwards. That is a no. Nope, snake isn't good for me, right? Now, if you were to clear your thoughts, clear your mind, this isn't in the mind, this is in the heart. You now imagine the snake coming from the back of the room and you don't see it, but you know it's there and it's coming for you. You're going to sway forward because it's going to tell you to move, right? And it's yes or no questions. So simple yes or no's. I am 44 years old. Well, I'm going to throw back because I'm 40. Start simple, very simple yes or no questions, and you just kind of continue to build and practice it. And you will start to learn and trust the muscle of your heart, that heart muscle, and it will answer for you. And that is where I feel if I have any type of question of discernment, I can trust that.
Right. So when you are communicating with the other side, you use this technique in order to determine whether or not what you're hearing or what you're feeling is accurate.
Well, yes and no. I bring up muscle testing only because it's the foundation of my practice and how I began down the road of mediumship. So I feel it's an important step, I think, for anyone if I were to give advice on how to connect, because it started with me getting a feeling in my body, whether it be a headache or a pain in my neck or down my back or my arm. And I would muscle test a yes or no, is this mine? And from there, I would ask more questions. Is this from someone living? No. And then I would know it was a spirit. And then I would start to ask questions to kind of try to narrow down who the spirit was. So that was the beginning of my practice. And I would sit in a room, I would have a notebook, and whatever their messages that came through, I would write them. So muscle testing is how I was able to confirm things. It was a physical answer versus the answers I'm just getting in my head. So I was able to kind of like cross-reference or confirm for myself and my practice. And that's how my practice developed. So do I use muscle testing in my current practice? At times, when I feel my consciousness slipped into the session and it was my own thought versus what the spirit was telling me, I like to muscle test and make sure that came from the spirit and not from me.
What I use muscle testing most for is in my healing sessions when I find something that is very big on someone, I will muscle test it to make sure it is what it is because people are trusting me to find that deep rooted trauma or emotion that's hidden and buried. And it's my job to make sure it's right.
Is that because a person might not know that it's even that thing?
Sure, that. And there's also things that come up in my healing sessions that, I mean, crazy traumas that I wouldn't know this person went through. And they may not even, they've shut it out, right? It happened in childhood, it happened there. they've never told a soul. They buried it deep because that's what we do with trauma. And for me to bring it forward will also bring up a lot of emotions. And the goal is not to upset them, but to bring clarity from it and closure and to heal them from it, to remove and transmute it.
Okay. So what happens to a person's energy when they pass?
It transcends. In that instant, it transcends. Some, it transcends before that instant. When a person dies, it's not the person that dies, it's the body, it's the physical. We're spirits in bodies. So that spirit moves on. It goes into another form. And that form just so happens to align with the frequencies and vibrations of spirit plane.
That form is essence, the essence of that being. That's what carries on. That's what we are when we meet each other, even in our physical bodies on this earth. We are falling in love with the essence of someone. That essence is what carries on.
What is that form? What do we become?
For me, I can see that essence when I am connected to the spirit plane in many different ways. I see them as light, and I see them as their best human form, or it really depends on the spirit and how they want to be perceived. And that's the kind of interesting and cool part of it, is that I can speak to one spirit who's a little more reserved and maybe doesn't show me images, but shows me words and gives me feelings of their life that can resonate for the sitter, versus another spirit who will show me exactly how the sitter remembers them and will give me images and picture shows of their life. Others will give me the essence of them, like their personality for this person. Every sitter and every spirit is different and communicates differently. And their form, or that essence, I feel like plays a part in it.
What are we doing on the other side?
Well, a lot of things. You have to think, okay, time is relative, so we create time, right? It's not like that there. It's they're here and they're there. Does that spirit who loved riding motorcycles cross country stop loving that? No. Was there this never-ending road in spirit plane? Sure, it's whatever they manifest. So I like to explain it kind of as your most magnificent manifestation. They're there. And he's also, while he's riding his motorcycle, he's with his loved one who's thinking about him and just saw his watch in the drawer, and it made them think of him and it made them miss him. And he's there at that same time, providing that comfort and love. It's transcending through all time and space, right?
So I understand that the concept of soul families, do we travel with each other? When I inevitably go, am I going to meet my sister over there?
Oh, they 100% happen over there. We are connected. So again, the number one thing that I want everyone to understand, love. It's unconditional, right? So when you love someone, that grandma who fed you and clothed you and helped out and took care of you, she loved you. You weren't her kid. She didn't have to take care of you. But what she did it out of love. And that love doesn't die. It's still there, and that's what connects you. So that's what creates the bridge for them to be a part of our world, right? So it's also the thing that connects us, that when we go, we're going right to our loved ones. If not, we're met by them in that instant of leaving the physical. So that's why people, when they have those near-death experiences and they say the angels lifted them up, or all they felt was love and they didn't want to leave. That's what it is. That is the all-knowing. That's the interconnectedness between us all.
Okay, Seekers, I think this is a really great place to take a break. We'll be right back with the episode. Hey, Seekers. So, healing isn't always pretty, but you don't have to do it alone. Temperance Energy Healing offers intuitive energy work to support you through life's biggest transitions, grief, change, and beyond. Whether you're navigating loss or simply seeking alignment, Temperance offers grounded support with care, clarity, compassion, and non-judgment. We offer in-person sessions in Marina Del Rey and Valley Glen, or remote sessions if you're outside the LA area. Book a session, remember who you are, and fill your cup at threeofcupshealing.com. So, are there any patterns or themes that you've recognized when connecting to people on the other side, regardless of cultural background or where they're from?
Yeah, I do see patterns. I will say the number one theme that I always feel when I connect to spirits and I ask them to step forward, the first thing I feel is their gratitude. And the second thing that they all want everyone to know, their sitter, I'm okay. You're not okay, but I'm okay. And you have to they're gentle with it. But when we think about it, we're so heartbroken. And you have to remember that people go in many different ways. And that is their physical's path, but the spirit grows from it. So it was necessary, and they don't want their loved ones to remember the way that they went. They want them to remember the love. Because once you lose that remembrance, that's where you get stuck in grief. That's where you get stuck in pain. And they know that for them, for their soul to grow and yours, you got to move through the grief.
Move through the grief. Yeah. I understand that to the core of my being, moving through the grief. And is it easier to connect with them once we've moved through the grief, or can we connect with them even in our grief?
We can connect to them, I say, through the grief, because grief is a process that is
Mm.
necessary, right? We think we have the science down, right? We see those things online, that the stages of grief, and they're pretty accurate. However, everyone grieves differently and everyone grieves at a different
Mhm.
pace. And first of all, grief tears down all those notions, those falsities of ourselves that we create to protect ourselves. Grief rips those
Mhm.
down. That's why it's so raw. And that's why it can be a vortex of change, a vortex that opens the portal to spirituality,
Mm.
to being able to communicate with spirits.
It's interesting because then I think about frequencies, right? And I think about the emotional scale of frequencies, like love is the highest, but to be able to connect the frequency of love, even when you're in the frequency of grief, is interesting to me because it seems as if those two things would not be able to intersect on a frequency level. Do you know what I mean?
I get that. On a frequency level, I get what you're saying. I would say that grief is love. It's the somatic
Mm,
of love,
love
right?
that. Yeah.
So you're going to feel it deep and it hurts and it's pain. And sometimes love can be that. Love isn't just one thing.
It reminds me of the concept of the only reason why it hurts so much is because of how much you love. Oh, that
Yeah.
makes so much
Because it
sense.
wouldn't. When you think about that, love is everything. To connect, I say unconditional love. Find it. Find it in yourself. Find it for your sitter. Find it for the spirits trying to connect to their loved ones and let them know they're okay. Unconditional love is our
Mm.
gate to the all-knowing. It is the trees, it's the grass, it's the breeze on your face. Love, it takes many forms. And when you love someone so deep and so unconditionally, it makes an imprint on your soul. So when your soul has an imprint of this person, this love for this person, and they pass, the grief is the explanation, right? The grief is the somatic feeling that it takes you throughout all your body. And it connects the body, the physical, to the soul.
Can you explain somatic for people that might not know what that is?
I would say somatic, again, on a vibrational scale, is the way our body, our fascia, our bones, our muscles hold energy because they do. We're 90 something percent water, and water's energy. So it takes all of the physics of movement and to work out, right? To run. Everything that it takes for a body to do that is working somatically together. It's its own type of symmetry and math.
Can you share any stories with us that might help people believe the afterlife actually exists? Because everything that you've given me so far has been amazing. But I feel like sometimes anecdotes help to broaden our minds a bit more.
The question isn't really about the afterlife, it's about life. And when you change that perspective, your life, as big and small as it may seem in its moments, is like a wave. It's being carried by the wind. We experience highs and lows, but they're ours. And so, giving you a story of what somebody else quoted, that's their belief of the afterlife. And yours is within you. It's going to be different, and it's not going to make you believe. It's going to touch your heart, and you're going to still think, oh, well, I wonder what it's really, or if it's really there, because it's not your story. So when you think of stories, think of your own. And like I said, going back to
Right.
those tiny little intricate details of your life where you were touched by heaven, you were touched by spirits, you were on that frequency and you were just in it. It's the sound of the ocean waves and how it cleanses your soul and your being, and you're rejuvenated and ready to take on life again, right? It's the birds chirping. It's the robin that comes right to the window, and you're like, what? It's the hummingbirds. It's everything, all those little tiny things. And we will instantly convince ourselves that it was a coincidence.
I feel like you just read my mind, literally, because I always get hummingbirds outside my window and they remind me of my sister.
That is her message.
So, to your point, that now becomes a part of my belief system because
Yes.
you could have said any bird, like you literally could have said any
Yeah.
bird, but hummingbirds are one of the birds that I feel connected to my sister with.
And she knows. And it's a subtle message, right? Because you instantly think of her, and that's what they can do. And if you think about how, I don't even want to say the word difficult because it is and it isn't. But for them to be able to manipulate and move energy in a way to send you a message, that's its own belief system, right? That's its own thing. It raises everything. It raises all the questions and answers them at the same time.
We hear all these different concepts about how we transition on the other side. You just were talking about the difficulties, right? So it takes time to like gain your power on the other side, right? So when you pass, there is this like transition period on the other side where you have to get used to being there. Is that something that you've
I
seen?
have. There is an integration period. Now, I have seen spirits who will have the will of love that forces them to move me or give me an impression. And I'm like, hey, that was too soon for you. But it's energy. And when we're integrating into the spirit life, there are universal laws, there are energetic laws, and for us, there's physical laws, right? So all laws have to be adhered to and acknowledged. We live with laws in our life now. It's the same, but that integration period, I will say I have it, I believe, even on my website, that I don't always recommend having a mediumship reading until you are through certain stages of grief, because it's not going to be beneficial for the person we need it to be beneficial for, the sitter, because they are so lost in their grief that they can't receive the message. And usually the message is, I'm okay. I'm with you. And that's something they've been told the past 3, 4, 5 weeks after the funeral, right? And their words to them. So it does make it hard for the spirit to fully communicate and give the impressions that it needs to through the clairs that will be receptive to the sitter.
What are the clairs?
One of the big ones for me is clairsentience. And that is the ability to feel emotions and sensations, the feeling of energy from others, like other people, but also from the spirit. So that's one of my strongest clairs, is feeling their emotions. And it's not always a great one for mediumship readings, because it's like me telling you, they loved you so much, because I can feel it, but I can't quite put it into words, right? Other than that, explaining how much they loved you. Another one is claircognizance, which is the ability of knowing. It's just to know without real explanation. It's kind of a form of intuition, right? You just know, it's given to you as a knowing that you would know of your own self. It's their knowing.
So you just have to trust the feeling and know that you're saving what this person is giving you. And then you have to find the verbiage to relay it, right? Clairaudience is where you're hearing a soul voice.
Are you hearing it outside of you, or are you hearing it in your head?
In your head. So there can be certain subtle things that you hear, shifts in your ears. I know some people hear a whisper. Most of mine, because I am a mental medium, meaning I receive my messages and impressions in my head, and everything kind of takes place there. So it's a game. You got to trust yourself, because they come in the same as your own thoughts. So you're like, did I just hold on? You got to find your center again, find your power, and step outside of it. And that's what I'm doing. I don't do mediumship for the show. I don't do it to feel special. I do it because it does help people. And so it's very important to me that I convey the right message, that I step outside of myself and I give myself to them. I give my consciousness and I leave space. I still got my consciousness that's over here because I have to carry a conversation with my sitter, but I'm leaving them this space here. You can use all these things. I'm gifting you them. Use it wisely.
What Rachel offers in this episode is more than just answers. It's a reminder that connection doesn't end when the body does. Her perspective invites us to soften our grip on certainty and open ourselves up to the unseen. But theory is one thing, experience is another. So, next week we'll shift from conversation to demonstration. Rachel will do a mediumship reading for me, and I'll be honest, I wasn't sure what to expect. But what came through surprised me. It actually comforted me and left me with even more questions about what exists beyond this life. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Seekers. And join us next week as we explore what happens when we allow Spirit to speak. This is the Hanged Woman podcast, where perspective is power. Until next week, hang in there, seekers.